We are back with the F1 Challenge Career Mode, this time tackling Austin, Texas. Cota, one of my favourite tracks on the whole F1 calendar. Fast flowing, dynamic and challenging all the way. Let's see what we can do in today's episode. Here we are, Texas, and as always starting off by showing the R&D tree, and we are slap bang at the bottom, losing even more performance to the rest of the field as we're arriving today in Cota, and we're going to be changing a lot of the engine components. Additionally, this is how the driver's standing is lining up. Pretty hard to be going to win the championship from here, but 3 drivers are tied on 59 points in the P2, and we are shortly behind in P5 as well, within touching distance, and P6 in the constructors as well. It's a sprint weekend. So what we're going to do is go out on a set of medium compound tyres, and then go out on a set of soft compound tyres later. Go on the mediums initially to get a feeling for it, and then complete the session with the faster, stickier tyres of the soft compound. Coming up for a first lap here in qualifying, starting the lap. Bit of a sighter, no real pressure on this lap. Still do want to get it right though, if we can. Probably not much we can do. I'm already thinking about up in the rear ride height, but I don't really think that's going to help this car around this track. It'll probably make it easier to drive, but I don't imagine it's going to make it quicker. Across the line, first run up into P8 on the medium compound tyres, and we had a lot of battery to use as well, or we didn't use, so that's very positive as an early sign. So first run is done. Says that we can get a second by slapping on a new set of softs as well, so that's quite a good sign, as we're currently 1 second away from the top. So if the theory is true, we can be taking provisional pole position with the advantage from the set of compound tyres. Around the final corner to open up our first opportunity on these soft compound tyres, our first sight, our first feel at the grip that we're going to be getting from these tyres around this very difficult track. A bit blind into turn 1, didn't really spot the apex how we would have dreamt to. Rising into the fast sweepers. Again, understeer. Careful not to invalidate. Bit of oversteer then as we rise over the top of the crest. Half a second up on the delta though. Very good for the left-hander. 6 tenths up. A bit more time to find in the final sector as well. So maybe it is true. Maybe we can end up 1 second faster on our lap time. Still another sector to go though. All to gain, all to lose. Purple in the middle. And the rear tyres gave up there. Really struggling to see the apex with that sort of timing tower on the left hand side in the way. Quite a lot of battery to use in this final sector. Down to 6th. That was pretty sweet. Final apex on the lap. Rear of the car. Switching around. We do end up 9 tenths faster and up all the way in P5. So that's a good effort, that is. Especially considering the small mistakes. And the first time of seeing the car on soft tyres on this track, only being 1.5 tenths away from pole position, and we did make a few mistakes. So let's see as we go into what should be a wet sprint race. Intermediates are very strong on this year's game. Either way, this is the setup that we're going to be using for the sprint race, and I think we are going to keep on the full wet tyre just to ensure that we don't make a mistake and we keep the same situation as the AI. Maybe go into intermediates later if there is a safety car. But until the dry and line forms, a wet tyre is normally better on this year's game. But it all depends how quickly that dry line can form, as we are coming with 5 lights on, lights out. And away we go. A pretty average start from us as Verstappen is going left and right everywhere. And we're going to look down the inside. Bit of a front left lock up all over the place in the braking zone. But somehow able to get the car slowed down and get into P2 in this race. Russell's already storming away. I don't really know how I got the car slowed down there, to be honest. We were sideways in the braking zone. It just kind of all came together nicely. And we got the space from the AI when I didn't really expect to get it. Verstappen attacking us into turn 1. Backs out of it. It means we can go early on the brakes. Get a nice rotation. Back on the power. Again, something that's very important in all of this. It's not overly draining my battery too early on. Very difficult to see the white line from here. That being said, we were on the limit of the track. That was quite nice. A bit wide there. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to adjust that timing tower on the left-hand side. And we'll get through this straight. Then get through this battle with Verstappen. That's going to look around the outside. Then we will adjust that timing tower to make it less distracting and less blocking the apex's view as we go into the left side. Verstappen does a switchback on us. It doesn't quite pick up the traction. That's worked out nice for us. We'll go through this corner, then we'll start adjusting it. Right, Russell was a second faster than us on the previous lap. Verstappen's closing in, but will be too far to go for a lunge. Irrelevant of that though, we did miss our braking zone. Far from ideal. I can actually feel the grip getting a bit higher on the track now though. As we're running down the straight, Verstappen's now all over the back of us. It's looking to the outside line. I'm going to cover that off late on the brakes. Just make sure we don't go too deep. Because we do go pretty deep, but Verstappen just isn't able to pick up the traction. We're able to fend him off, at least for another lap. George Russell was nearly 5 seconds clear out in the race lead, having all his own way. Right, George has built up the gap to 6 seconds as we do a new personal best. Yellow flag behind. There's a McLaren retiring from the race. Would love if that made a safety car, not going to lie. Don't think it's going to happen. Let's see who it is. Is it Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri?
Okay,
it's Lando Norris.
They're retiring from the race.
That's unfortunate. Good for us though in the championship. We'll take it. Helps us along. There's going to be a second DNF. There's a Aston Martin going slowly on the back straight. You can see just briefly the green flags popping up on the top left-hand side of the screen. It isn't really going to affect us. Actually, no, it would affect us. Aston Martin are very close to us in the championship. If I'm not mistaken, Alonso is ahead of us as well in the championship. So that double DNF in one lap is going to be very, very impactful, very helpful for us. Again, moving to the inside, firstly of all, to be cooling down the tyres with the extra water, but to initially as well take our defensive stance against Max Verstappen as he looks to the outside. We're going to be early on the brakes to make sure he can't go underneath us, get the car slowed down, and that is another time successfully defending the position in the middle sector. Lap 8. George did not do his fastest lap. What do? We don't do fastest lap. It must have been pretty close though. Final lap of the race. In all honesty, these wet races keep our championship alive. Really gives us the opportunity to outperform the car. Verstappen might take away the opportunity for us to do fastest lap here if he goes side by side. Luckily, he's too far away. Is he actually? No, yeah, he is too far away. He looks up the inside. We had to brake late just to cover off the line. Kind of cost us a 10th there. Let's see if we can bring it back in the final sector. We gained a little bit to George Russell comparing to last lap. For hard to know if we're going to have the rear grip available to us to actually get that fastest lap still through the right hander. Perfectly drifting the car so far. Down 2 gears. Bit wide of the corner. Really up against the track limits there. Final corner of the race. and a bit too wide, a bit too slow. It won't be fastest lap, but it is P2, and that's a good result.
Work, mate. You did a really good job today. Pretty sure the boss is going to be happy with that one.
Okay, I was actually completely wrong. There isn't a point for fastest lap in this situation, so makes no difference to us. We did take home 7 points, George 8, Verstappen 6, of course Lewis with 5 points as well, then running down from there. So that's a nice little boost in the standings. Let's see where that puts us. It promotes us up to P3 in the championship now, 1 point away from Charles Leclerc. So if we have a good qualifying, we have a good race, we could see ourselves in P2 in the championship after this race.
So what a thrill for everyone today to see our drivers lapping Cota at full hot lap speed. It's the Circuit of the Americas and it's qualifying.
So we are here, and there is a small chance of rain in the short qualifying session, but doesn't seem like it will actually fall onto the track, so should be a full, dry, slick tyre qualifying if we get lucky. 3 runs today. We're going to start off on the medium compound tyre, then go to 2 softs later in the session. Also, don't cut the final corner. That's another lesson I'll take. 31.3, even with the mistakes. Right, bolting on our tyre. So where was a 31.3 going to put us? Currently, that will put us P7 on the grid, behind Sergio Perez, up ahead of Esteban Ocon. They're all on the soft compound tyre though. So that does leave a good opportunity for us to slot into a very nice grid position. Second lap coming up. It's a double Leigh back row. Brendon Leigh P21, Brendon Leigh P22. Hopefully we can change that by the end of this lap. Throw the car in. Pretty conservative, but still pretty quick. Final corner, do not cut. We didn't. It was successful. Where does it put us? And it goes all the way up into P2 with a 6.99 across the start-finish line. That is simply lovely. Final lap coming up. Should be pretty close, as we're going to be starting our final lap in qualifying. Maybe we can fight for pole position, but we're going to require to do a perfect lap to even have a chance. Turn 1 started well. Almost a 10th up. Remember, the car's going to understeer here. Decent job. Better with track limits there though. Decent run up and over the hill. 1.1 temps up, 1.2. Can take a better line here. Cut more of the curbing. Still didn't compromise the traction. Now we didn't gain that much there. The exit was worse than I expected to. The car bounced off the curbing. George Russell improves to provisional pole position. Let's see what we can do. Gain a lot of time through there. Purple middle. Looking for that exit speed here. Car wobbling around, not ideal. Wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. A lot of time to find in the second last corner here if we send it. Bit more understeer than I expected. 2 temps up though. Final corner of the lap almost invalidated. 2.5 temps up. Where can we go? It's P4. I'll take that lap though. I'll take it. It was pretty much as good. And it's going to get... Wow. Less than a 10th away from pole position. It's an all-Brit 1, 2, 3, 4. Then of course Max Verstappen lining up P5. That's a good qualifying, that is. That's been a good sprint qualifying and main race qualifying. Let's see if we can replicate that pace in the race as well. Here we are on the grid. This is the setup that we're going to be using for the race. More or less it's balanced for the My Team car to try and maximize it. But for some reason, we're in P3 when I do distinctly remember qualifying P4. So, Lewis Hamilton has had a grid penalty. I presume he's changed an engine component, but that's promoted us into an all-Brit top 3. And we are going to look to capitalize that in lap 1, turn 1 especially, and maybe even be taking the race lead. 57.7 kg of fuel and we're going to be getting lights out, and away we go here in Cota. A good start, better than George Russell. Lando Norris had a fly, but speaking of flyers, Carlos Sainz on the outside. We're 3 wide, we're a bit sandwiched in turn 1, I think even 4 wide at some point then, with Verstappen on the inside. But Lando has absolutely ran away with it at this point. The second in the lead. Judging by our pace on previous races, it's going to be pretty difficult to keep up with the AI in the race, because they seem to have just much better tyre wear, and our car is not turning right now. Lando already 1 second up ahead. It's going to be very difficult. Let's see what we can do though. Need the first lap of the season. Running down the back straight. Don't want to overuse my battery right now. Yeah, Lando's 1.1 seconds ahead, gaining on the top speed. Into the left-hander. Really throwing the rear axle at the corner. Gonna try everything we can. But of course, I can't just waste all my battery. Otherwise, it will leave us too vulnerable to the cars behind. 1.2 seconds, no. We should play it smart. Settle in, because we're not going to gain 2.5 tenths to Lando in the first sector of this race without him making a mistake, of course. We might be able to break the DRS to Max Verstappen, though. Again, unlikely, but might as well try. 1.4 to Lando Norris now. There you go, 1.4 over the top of the hill. Was never going to be keeping in that DRS in all honesty, as Max is already on the attack down the back straight with DRS wide open. We're going to try and send it down the inside, but we can't. In all honesty, Max isn't really who we're fighting. He's too far long gone in the Drivers' Championship. More interesting to try and follow these cars with DRS though. The mistake I made in Zandvoort was fighting each car too hard, ultimately hurting our net race position. But if I can be smart with the AI that I pick to fight, we might walk away with a decent result here. He might drag us back to the DRS of Lando Norris as well, if we're somewhat fortunate. Basically same battery level as the previous lap. Right, 6 tenths to Max over the top of the hill, 7.5 tenths. Pulling away quite rapidly. Again, just seeming like the AI have more efficiency with their aerodynamics. What is to be expected with how much better their car is than ours. Down the straight now. If we can get this gap down to 4 tenths without having to use too much battery, we could be in here to stay in the DRS. And we do that. We bring it down to that magic number that we was looking for. Verstappen is already pulling away compared to last lap. The AI, of course, have better tyre wear than the human ever will. Going to have to use a bit of battery on this lap. George Russell is there. We have to ensure that we stay nice and close to Verstappen. So Russell's acceleration was definitely better than his top speed. Maybe suggesting that he turned off his overtake button. 8 and a bit tenths. We're just going to sneak in the DRS on this lap. This might be the end of our chance to really stay with Max Verstappen in this race. Right on the limit there. Max is 1 second ahead now. We might as well let George Russell go past, and maybe we can start playing the same game with him, as Alexander Albon's out of the race, but doesn't seem like it's going to be causing a safety car. Charles Leclerc is ahead of us in the championship, behind us in the track, so that is a big one to be focusing on. Lando Norris as well, really close to us in the championship, so if he does win this race, like it looks like he will right now, he will take over P2 in the Drivers' Championship. So a lot of implications, a really close championship fight as we're coming towards the end of this mini-season. Of course, only 10 races, in fact. Not able to get past us. Luckily, actually, he might be able to get past us. We have to go a little bit defensive as he goes down the inside. We carry the speed around the outside line. That was a much later attack than I was expecting. Luckily, George Russell didn't have the DRS ahead, what meant we could save a little bit of battery. I don't want Charles to go for it in turn 1. Goes for it again. He goes for it regardless. And that is going to be GG for the DRS of George Russell. So Charles Leclerc fighting us in the first turn has led to a situation that I'm going to be out of George Russell's DRS. So whether that was intentional or not was very smart from Charles. And we're going to have to try and rethink our strategy and do damage limitation for the rest of this stint. Probably looking to come in as soon as possible as he goes down the inside. We have to leave the space on the left-hander. But yeah, we're probably going to have to rethink our strategy. Bit of damage limitation. As Charles Leclerc is now going to go past. Try to hang on to the position from Carlos Sainz. But if we can stay nice and close to Charles, that's what we'll be looking for. Because in theory, the further we fall back, the easier it will be to follow the AI. Just was lacking a few attempts for George Russell and Max Verstappen. Maybe we'll fall into that bracket with Charles Leclerc. Hopefully not falling any lower than 5th. Will be a pretty big ask. The closest we've been to an AI for the top of that section, opening sector 2 in a long time. That's very positive for us. And still a decent amount of battery as well. Starting the straight on 55. So it seems, don't want to jinx it right now, touch wood, we're in a position that we can follow Charles Leclerc for the remainder of this stint. I think even if we undercut it to George Russell, Max Verstappen, Lando Norris even, we probably won't have the pace to keep up with them. But I feel like a lot of our strategy will be now mirroring what Charles Leclerc decides to do. And trying to stick with him for the rest of the race. Opening lap 11. So the pit window is kind of opening right now. Lap 11 would probably be too soon. And would require tyre saving. In a situation I can't really do tyre saving against the AI. Right, I think this might be our box lap. Okay, Carlos Sainz is going to go up the inside. There's nothing we can do about it. We don't have enough battery or straight line speed to fight that. So better to let it go. Not lose time, not lose touch with Charles Leclerc in this race. Hopefully Perez won't go for it. Perez seems like he will put a bit of pressure. But I think as the straight goes on, it might dwindle down. It doesn't dwindle down. He goes to the inside. And now we're going to be looking around the outside of Carlos Sainz. We don't really want to fight. We don't want to lose time. But we are going to end up on the inside anyway. Just simply because he had a bad exit. Retaking P5 in this race. 1.7 seconds. So, ideally Charles does not box, to be honest. So then we can undercut our way back into his DRS. He doesn't box. Into pit lane. Make sure we don't speed. This would be a disaster. Oh, I got a sore throat. Right. There's an Alpine in. Optimal on the pit stop, so please do not make a mistake. That is nice and quick. 2.4 as well. So now pit lane limiter off. Seems like we're just coming out in clean air. Ahead of Logan Sargent. Through turn 1. Get the car rotated. Right, we need a rapid outlap here. So if we do get lucky, Yuki may come out in front of Charles Leclerc and hold him up. Mercedes on pit exit. There's Charles Leclerc. He's going to be out of our DRS zone right now. 1.4 seconds. It's a bit too far for us to use all of our battery on, I reckon. But he might be too far back from Yuki Tsunoda to overtake him on the back straight. But that being said, he is closing very, very quickly. And we might be clutching at straws here. 1.1 seconds to Charles Leclerc now. Yeah, he's easily going to get past Yuki on this straight. But we were able to close in quite a lot because of Yuki being slow on that corner. Yeah, Charles is going to easily blow past him. does see that he's low on battery though. Yuki tries to go back around the outside. Oh, it's Ricciardo actually. My apologies. Daniel Ricciardo. Not Yuki Tsunoda. Silly me. We are going to have to send it though. Nice and clean. Down the inside. But that puts us out of the DRS of Charles Leclerc. A lot of the other cars now are boxing. Basically all the leaders are now boxed. Then Ricciardo follows him in. Let's see where we filter out. Let's see how the race shapes up. We should be back in P5. Maybe P4 with Russell here. Not really much point fighting Russell. Because he is on superior tyres than us. And if we just fight him, we're going to lose total race time. There's a very small chance. But there's a chance that he might drag us to the back of Charles Leclerc. Again, the chance of that is tiny. But may happen. So I won't overtake him on the straight. I'm just going to focus all my energy to getting that battery as high as possible. And if we do get lucky, and he does drag us to the back of Charles Leclerc, we can capitalise from it. Not even going to bother overtaking George Russell, because I know it will just cost us total race time. Put us back in the fight with Lewis, what we want to avoid. Take us away from the opportunity to fight Charles, what we want, of course. So George Russell is chipping away at Charles Leclerc. We're able to do consistent lap times with his slipstream and DRS. We're pushing as hard as we can, but every lap we have to use more and more battery to try and keep up with him. Right, having to use all of our overtake button, and it is literally 1 second on the line. So let's see if we did get it or not. I doubt we did. And indeed we didn't. That is not ideal. George Russell flashing with his battery up ahead though. So we was able to hang on. We was able to hang on to the Russell and Leclerc fight for longer than I expected. But now you see, once they've broken DRS to us, it is game over. Let's see how quickly we can go on this lap. A lap without DRS, a lap without slipstream. Let's see how far off the pace we were doing before. Doing 34 zeros, 34 ones pretty consistently when we had the DRS to George. Right, Lewis now is 8 tenths behind us, but Alonso's dropped out of the DRS of Lewis Hamilton. That could be very pivotal in this race. Final corner. Let's see what we're doing. So 34 ones before, 35.5. So we're 1.4 seconds a lap slower just by not having that DRS and slipstream advantage to the cars ahead. Of course, a little bit of tyre deck situation. Not really too much though, because it was only a handful of laps difference. But Perez and Alonso fighting behind Lewis may give us the opportunity to play the same game with Lewis we played with Russell. It will be difficult though. We have to make sure our battery is high. As now Lewis is going to be looking around the outside of us, and look at that straight line speed difference. Even while flashing on his battery, what means he is not using his ERS mode. So about 150 horsepower less, and he still flew past us with the DRS wide open. Bit of a weird race as well. No safety car. Practically no yellow flags. Only one car is retired so far. Safety car would do us lovely though. Qualifying is anything to go by. We're better on the soft compound tyre. Or maybe it's just because on one lap we can make a bigger difference to the AI, and once the tyre deck kicks in, we're kind of a sitting duck. Either way though, suits itself to having a late race safety car. It will be indeed, but still 8 tenths. Almost 8.5 tenths over the DRS detection line. Whatever we do though, it's an obvious statement to say I know, but we do need to keep in the DRS, because as soon as we fall out of Lewis's DRS there, we're going to be losing over a second per lap to Sergio Perez and the Alonso train behind us. So even if we are just hanging on to Lewis's DRS to try and keep P6 in this race, that is considerably better than of course fighting for P7, P8. Again, obvious statement, I know, but it's a thought process that I'm having. Maybe we don't have an opportunity to fight Lewis, but maybe just by not fighting him, it opens up the opportunity to stay in P6. 26 of the race. Lewis had a snapper wheel spin. I had a snapper wheel spin as well. 4 tenths away, but considerably lower on battery. 5.5 tenths as we was getting into this high-speed sequence. So although we're struggling with Lewis, we are extending that gap to cars behind. If they battle, they lose. If they fight, it opens up the chance for us. And going into this next right-hander seems our best opportunity to put Lewis under pressure in this race. Everywhere else seems to have the legs on us. See, we're as close as we ever get through here, but the 2 corners next being medium speed, there isn't really a braking zone to have a lunge, have a go at him. But starting sector 3 just feels like our best opportunity without Lewis making a mistake. Provided we don't make a mistake here, we should have Checo beaten. And we should have P6 confirmed in the bag. But we're still going to try and go for P5. All over the back of Lewis now. What can we do? Can we have a look here? We'll try and scare the AI off their line. Down the inside. And you can see Lewis just about left the space here. This is all just about trying to slow down the AI right now. As Lewis goes a little bit wide and we're close as we've ever been. We're not really going to be close enough into the left-hander. The AI pull away again. Reminder, we're now on 2 out of 3 corner cut warnings. 1 more, and that leads to a penalty. Down the pitch straight, the lowest we've been on the battery. And Lewis is pulling away from us. Quick time down there as well. Not ideal. Right, let's see what we can do. Down to 15%. 4.1 seconds. 7 tenths to Lewis going into the sequence. So clearly, well, I feel anyway, he's turned on his battery and he's about to break the DRS to us. Maybe that opportunity on the penultimate lap was the best we're going to get, and I think it might be. Even still though, Lewis has helped Lewis has helped us massively in this race today. Just by the DRS, the slipstream off his car, as he is flashing on the battery, but so are we. We're not really going to be close enough right now to make anything happen. Just too low on the battery to capitalize ourselves, as he does make a mistake though, and we are going to be just as close as we were previous lap through the right-hander. Final lap of the race, of course, we've got to send it. We've got to try and make something happen down the inside, and we do actually get the play. Okay, that was rubbing. Okay, that was my fault. I can't take the place like that. I can't take the place like that. Basically, to show that in replay camera, I locked up and went wide. So I thought we were going to have the position, but you can see I went wide there. It was my car being out of control and kind of pushed him off the track. So just to not be dirty, I think it's better to get back to place rather than taking positions like that. But still, we took a gamble, we took a risk, didn't pay off, but still P6 in the race seems like the best result we could have gotten out of today, especially with the pace we had.
All right, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
Pretty much perfect execution with the DRS usage from the cars ahead to maximize the result. So you can see now combined totals, Max Verstappen is the overall victor of the weekend, including the sprint race. Of course, he won the race as well with fastest lap, so he's taking home 32 points. We're taking home 15, tied with Lewis Hamilton, just behind Charles and Lando Norris. George Russell equally P2 in the overall. So let's see where that puts us in the standings. That's going to put us on 69 points, losing a little bit more ground to P2 in the championship. But considering the pace that we had, I think that was pretty much maximized today. And I don't really feel like we could have got much more out of it. Maybe we could have done slightly different things with the battle with Lewis, but that's about it. Speaking on the Constructors' Championship, we are still in P6, very, very close to Aston Martin. So, seems like it's going to be a fight between me and Aston Martin to be taking home P5, and it is going to be all on the line to take P2 in the Drivers' Championship, as Max Verstappen is long gone in the Drivers' Championship. There we go. Austin, Texas is concluded, and I would call that a successful race. Of course, we would have liked to win it, but for the pace that we had, we played the AI and the DRS games perfectly all the way through, maximizing our potential. With that being said though, thank you so much for watching the video, and I will catch you in the next video. Grazie, ciao ciao, bye bye.